With no apparent sense of irony, President Obama eulogized those children who had lost loved ones due to terrorism and the scourge of violence, and those children whose parents' seats sat empty at the dinner table. But he said nothing of those orphaned children whose injustice was done to them by the man at the podium and by those that stood before him. Since Barack Obama took office, some 2,000 Pakistanis have been killed in drone strikes, and those are largely civilians. They are nameless, faceless Pakistanis. And no word was said about those losses or those children. President Obama spoke of bin Laden as being a mass murderer of Muslims, but said nothing of the hundreds and thousands of Muslims who have been killed since the invasions and occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan. Neither was there any acknowledgement that Iraq was a country that had nothing to do with Al-Qaeda or with Osama bin Laden, but has only become fertile breeding ground for both parasites since American, British, French, and we should say Australian as well, troops put their boots on its soil. The death squad who killed bin Laden, we were told, exemplified courage and determination, so much so that they are now in hiding and their families fear for their lives. The murder, which was also simplified as today's achievement, was a testament to the greatness of America and to the determination of the American people, who we were told, in the manner of a pep talk given to slightly obtuse children, can accomplish anything that they set their minds to, whether that is standing up for equality, or defending their values abroad, or pursuing property. But he didn't mention the failures of this can-do country, the renditions, the disappearances of suspects who were not even told what it was that they were suspected of, the torture, the waterboarding, the schools and wedding parties accidentally hit by smart bombs and predator drones. And in perhaps the grossest pronouncement of triumphalism, we were told that we were either with President Obama in celebratory euphoria or not, and that all those who valued peace and human dignity would welcome the demise of Osama bin Laden. Unfortunately, this moral turpitude was not unique to America's president, and if one needed coaching in just exactly how to enjoy assassination, you had plenty of options to choose from. Muslim groups across America and the world lined up to rejoice and separate themselves from Osama bin Laden. Elie Wiesel called it a death deserved and defended the cheering hordes of people whose delight was somehow more excusable than it would have been had the shoe been on the other foot. And the Dalai Lama, even the Dalai Lama, in the same breath in which he told us that he was so compassionate, he avoided swatting mosquitoes whenever possible, opined in his maroon Buddhist robes that when it was necessary to take countermeasures, then one ought to take countermeasures. This ethical degradation is not American, but it's to do with power, and specifically a power on the decline, paranoid, empty of glory, and threatened by everyone, even its shadows. But they're not the only guilty ones here. Pakistan, now for Pakistan. When it comes to conspiracy theories, we are the Scheherazade of nations. So dependent we are on storytelling for our survival. According to a recent Pakistani newspaper poll, 66% of us don't actually believe that Osama bin Laden was killed in our country. And should we? Maybe not. Osama bin Laden was armed when the SEALs came in to kill him. Osama bin Laden was unarmed when the SEALs came to kill him. One of his guards was armed. None of his guards was armed. He hid behind his 27-year-old Yemeni wife. He didn't hide behind his 27-year-old Yemeni wife. He lived in a multi-million-dollar mansion. It wasn't a multi-million-dollar mansion. It was a middle-class house. It had 18-foot high boundary walls. Every house in Pakistan has 18-foot high boundary walls. He was shot in the head, he was shot in the eye. He was buried at sea. We can't tell you which sea, but anyone on the Arabian coast shouldn't go near seafood for a while. We're 99.9% sure that the man we shot in Abbottabad and buried at sea was Osama bin Laden, American officials told the BBC. Foreign news anchors spent precious airtime devoted to the fact that the bin Laden compound did not have its garbage picked up, but had it burnt instead. They burnt their garbage, tight-necked presenters, that was my American accent, just in case you couldn't tell, declared portentously. Except that there are no garbage collectors in South Asia. So if we do anything at all with garbage, that's what we do, we burn it. We're showing the pictures, we're not showing the pictures. We don't trot this stuff out as trophies, said President Obama. Not that it stopped them from showing us Uday and Qusay Hussein's dead bodies, Saddam Hussein being pulled out of a rat hole, or in fact Saddam Hussein's hanging. And maybe it's not our fault. It's not difficult to conspiracy theorize Osama bin Laden. He was made of the stuff. He had a renal failure, but there were no dialysis machines at the compound. He hid in Kashmir, he led Chechen groups, he was an Arsenal fan. All bunk, it turns out. Don DeLillo wrote that a conspiracy is everything that ordinary life is not. It's the inside game, cold, sure, undistracted, and forever closed off to us. We are the flawed ones, the innocents, trying to make some rough sense of that daily jostle. Conspirators have a logic and a daring beyond our reach. And all conspiracies are the same taut story of men who find coherence in some criminal act. And we do this to an art form in Pakistan. So easy is it to take refuge in the shadowy world of maybes and maybe not, to blame all our failings on bogeymen, on the CIA, on Mossad, on anyone except ourselves. It saves us the trouble of confronting reality. It saves us the trouble of having to take the responsibility of abusing our country, the promise of our country, so quickly and so shamelessly. It saves us having to take the responsibility of assassinating the potential of our very young Pakistan in the span of one short lifetime. And it saves us from demanding better of our feckless rulers and depriving them of their overwhelming power over us when they have failed us, which they do all the time. It took America 5 days after killing Osama to launch a drone strike against Pakistan. 5 days and 15 or so dead later. What did we do in Pakistan? Nothing. We didn't talk about the 15 dead who are, as always, nameless, faceless people. We chose instead to talk endlessly about whether one man really died or didn't die. But perhaps out of all the theories I've heard, the best one is in-house. The Arab Springs negated the need for Osama bin Laden. Something new is happening across the Middle East, and it has nothing to do with Al-Qaeda or with this towering zombie that has been manufactured for us as the source of all evil and all injustice. But rather, the cause of and the catalyst for those Arab Springs are real reasons. They are the crown princes of oil-rich states that the West and the world have supported for decades, and dictators of bygone eras. The discourse, I think, with the Arab Springs has shifted. Now that Osama bin Laden is dead, the conflict between America and its wars and those who resist them is raw. And nobody gets to hide behind Osama anymore. Not America, not the terrorists. He's outrun his purpose. And while he outran his purpose, resistance across Asia has increased. And it blossomed, and it evolved, and it progressed. Osama bin Laden has no relevance in the Middle East today, and he certainly has no relevance in Asia. And anyone who thinks that they can derail the process that has started by trying somehow to reinsert him into our imagination, and anyone who thinks that the narrative now between people and power can be shifted by Osama even after his death, doesn't realize that after the spring there will be summers and autumns and winters to follow. Thank you.